So last week, at the end of the episode, I did over-under with you guys. And one of them I gave to Jeff was over-under the number of transfers that Buzz will bring into the program next week, over-under 5. And Jeff said under, but what's the number? It's 5. Exactly 5.
I did not anticipate the entire freaking roster turning over for the first time ever. Like that's
Crazy.
It's pretty unusual these days. It happens. Like it was Calipari maybe at Arkansas, or I can't remember, Indiana. Everybody went in the portal, but I was thinking there'd be a few stragglers or a few guys that Buzz was like, sure, man, you can hang out with us for another year. But he was
doing
like,
his thing, man.
He was like, you ain't got to go home, but you got to get the hell out of here.
Crazy.
So,
well, I mean, it seems like it's a thing that's happening all over the place. I mean, you don't have a situation where you have an entire roster going out, but you've got some of these programs where you've got coaches who are established, and they still got to find 10 guys in the portal. I mean, it's just a total free for all. I mean, yeah, and I guess what is it? Has it opened up yet, Jeff, or is it still a dead period technically for another couple days?
No, I think you can take visits beginning on Friday, actually.
Yeah,
it's Friday.
Okay. Yeah, I think the 11th is right. So yeah, then it's about to go fully insane. I mean, right now you're dealing with intermediaries and Zoom calls and whatnot, but this is just the beginning. I mean, certainly you're pretty happy that Maryland at least has enough players to field a team. So that's a start, right?
They won't have a bench, but what's new with that, right?
Hey, you only need 5 last year.
They're not bad, actually. I got a spreadsheet looking at the Torvik, the player ratings, comparing last year's team to the 5 that are in, plus some guys who've been mentioned. Mm-hmm. There's some reason for optimism here with what's going on. But before we get into it, I want to go over the bracket challenge because that is completed now.
That's not important. Why you don't look back in life? You move forward, Larry. We're not living in the past.
Poor Jeff. Well, that's all we'll just say. We'll preface it by saying poor Jeff every year. But let me share this screen with you guys.
I'll take my happy mid-pack finish.
You did better than mid-pack, Paul. You closed strong. But first, let's congratulate Mike Barth, who had such a lead that he lost the final and still won the challenge.
Wow, that's crazy.
So he gets a year. I don't know if he wrote to you yet. He did write on the message board. I told him to text me, Mike, if you're watching, let us know. We'll get you your 1 year. And then Zach Minahan, haven't heard from him yet on the message board or on the show. Zach, maybe you're a listener. Contact us on the board, on the message board, or comment on this show on YouTube. Get us your information. We'll get you the 6 months. And then Daniel Lewis comes in third. All 3 of you guys get to ask 5 questions. I haven't seen any of that yet. Daniel Lewis did respond on the board as well.
Daniel Lewis?
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. Fine actor. Friend of the
Gangs
show.
of New York is maybe one of my top movies ever.
Oh, really? Gangs of New York is?
You didn't like that?
It's okay. It's good. I won't say it's elite. I'll say it's good, but not elite.
I feel like it's elite. Anyway,
I didn't watch it.
You haven't seen it?
Nah,
it's good. I always thought one time what would be cool is to take every movie about gangs in New York or mafia and like put them in chronological order, and you could kind of start with Gangs of New York and go up through like the mafia movies and then like write all that stuff.
I'm a sucker for a mafia movie. It can be like really mediocre and I'll still watch it.
Yeah. You can almost kind of watch the entire history of the there's a documentary, by the way, about New York City. It's like 18 hours long. It's pretty incredible. Who's the guy who does the documentaries who did the World War Civil War? Ken Burns. Oh, but I think it's his brother. Rick Burns. I think it's his brother. Still very good, by the way. Watch it. It's
Is that
very good.
like Cal Ripken and Billy Ripken? Is that like the Billy Ripken of documentary guys? Like,
but the documentary is amazing. It starts back all the way back when it was just grass and it was indigenous peoples and the Dutch settlers came. And It starts there. It goes all the way up through 9/11. So it's really cool. It was done a couple decades ago. Anyway, all right. Look who came in tied for fourth. It would have been really interesting. Billy Keggs tied for fourth, 1 point away from getting to ask us 5 questions on the show.
That right there too. That's
damn. He killed it because he won Rudy Gersten's bracket. Won himself $2,000. Yeah.
No way! I didn't know that. I didn't realize it was so
much
money. Let's scroll down a little bit. That's my buddy Dave out in Vegas. And this is my buddy Eric that I went to college with. They both crushed it. Mia Khalifa in 23rd. Let's see. Here, Paul, look. You made it to the first page.
First page, babe. Boom.
You made it to the first page. 48th, not bad. Top, not quite third. There's 147. So but you're in there. You're in there on the first page. We scroll down a little bit. We've got our boy John Orend is coming in right here.
Right there.
72nd. I finished in 80th. I went for the upset with Alabama over Duke. And all the way to the final. That crushed me. Let's keep going. Jeffrey Ehrman, 91.
Hey, under 100.
If Houston had not peed down their leg, I would have been up in like the 50s or 40s, probably.
78. You would have been in the 50s, probably, yeah. But some others ahead of you also would have jumped. So, yeah, somewhere in the 50s. And then let's go. We've got one more interesting bracket to check out where that is. There he is, Mr. Walt Williams in 106. That's my dad. That's not me, Larry Francis, my dad. I am Lawrence the fourth. He is the third. So there you go. There's our boy Tom Wentz at 111. And Mr. Irrelevant, the Eternal Protector, who inexplicably picked North Carolina.
That's somebody who's definitely trying hard.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, so there you go. That is the IMS Radio Bracket Challenge. Winners, please contact us. We'll get you your prizes and send us your questions that we will answer live on the air.
And make them real questions. If you ask, whether Maryland's going to be able to, I don't know, just ask some ridiculous question. We're not going to be able to give you an answer. So ask a real answer.
They have in the past asked some funny stuff.
Yeah.
It's okay to have one.
Funny's all right, but if you just don't be like, oh, is Maryland gonna have a top 2 recruiting class? Well, let me answer that for you. Probably not. So try a little harder. That's all.
Yeah. Yes. All right. Speaking of recruiting, and really it's transfer. It's still recruiting.
That's all we're doing here at this point, right?
I guess it's recruiting still, the transfer stuff, because they're going to have. Unless he gets the high school players, there's 2 other, I think, high school kids who could still come to Maryland. He's going to have to get at least 5 or 6 other transfers to have a full roster.
Yeah, it's going to be – I've talked with you guys before about how after the season, it used to be like a real quick slowdown. There was nothing going on, and the transfer portal has made it crazy. But never before have we had literally every single roster spot, all 13 of them turning over. There's Chance Stevens, the sniper, entered the portal yesterday. He was the final guy out the door. It's like the Will Smith Fresh Prince gif of the empty room everybody uses. They've added, where are we at? 5. Like Larry said, he got me last week with that over-under on 5 additions this week. 5 in 1 week sounded crazy to me that quickly after the season. But again, I didn't realize this was going to be a historical reset of the entire program, basically staff and players. So they got 5. They got guys coming in. One of the high school guys that you mentioned is Jasir Rencher. He's a athletic, I think 6'6" wing from San Francisco, who was committed to Buzz at Texas A&M. So I think they've got a pretty good chance there. I know Texas and Washington have both been sniffing around, but if you're going to make that trip all the way from San Fran to Maryland, you're pretty serious about it. And then there's another, the kid that they
George Turkson.
I don't think Turkson, the other guard, or was he the other guy from Boston? The other kid from Boston, because the associate head coach Devin Williams has a really strong relationship with BABC, which is like the big AAU program there. I think Jake Lehman might have come out of it, or he might have been mass rivals. But anyways, I think they'll I'll have to look up his name again. It's been crazy. Like the past week, the amount of news and new names and coach stuff and everything else. I'm like running at full bandwidth, so I don't recall his name, but they're also trying to get Bryce Lindsay, James Madison guard. He would be one of the bigger splash guys. He was really good this year as a redshirt freshman, shot 40% from three on high volume, averaged like 14 a game, but he's got some SEC schools apparently throwing around quite a bit of money. So he's like the less expensive, who knows how good in comparison, but at least in terms of role, the less expensive Rodney Rice option, since they have just passed on that from right out of the gate, basically. But we'll see. He could get really expensive too. There's no guard really. This stuff is just total anarchy right now. They need more bigs. Everybody know. I don't know. Did they have any of these commitments? We didn't have any last week when we went on, right?
None.
No, I don't think so. No.
So yeah, bigs.
It was all rumored. Yeah.
Yeah. Pharrell Payne. I wrote this today. A few people have said to me they thought he might be the best or most talented big in the portal. Obviously, Solomon Washington, the other big man they got, more of a scrapper role player, really good defensively. So you can see, and then obviously the kid they got today, Andre Mills, top 100 recruit. I think he was like 92, something like that, a year ago. Redshirted this year at Texas A&M. He looks good, and anytime you can get that redshirt year of development, that makes you think maybe he's taken a pretty good jump from his senior year. So, you can see the pieces coming together. I have to give him that.
Well, here's the interesting thing for me, just because if you look at that team he's had the last couple of years, despite the portal and all this free movement and everything, Buzz has been able to keep a lot of guys around, and the continuity's been really good considering what's going on. So, it does make you wonder, the fact that he's been able to redshirt top 100 freshman kids, and not only are they okay with doing that, but they want to stick with him, even though he decides to take a job, almost 2,000 miles away. So it does make you wonder going forward whether you might have a situation where once he does build this roster to some degree, he might be able to keep the core of it together a little bit more than some other coaches have been able to do so far in the portal era. And it does make you think you might be able to get a little bit of a competitive advantage there, especially early in the season. We've already signed up. He's seen that he's gotten Maryland committed to play in that Vegas tournament early in the season next year, the Players Era tournament. That's going to be a huge, crazy field. You're going to be playing at least 2 or 3 pretty good teams. Now, this year, you're not going to get any benefit from that because you're bringing in, even some of these guys have played together, Texas A&M, but they're still new at Maryland. But you can imagine a couple years from now, if he's able to keep, 10, 11 guys on the team every year from transferring out, it could be a scenario where you're able to just pick and choose a few guys out of the portal that's a sprinkle on top of a roster that's already kind of there and has some continuity. So I'll be curious to see how that works out, whether that's just like a personality thing with Buzz or something that he's able to, the type of kids he's able to get are the type of kids that he's able to say, hey, look, you know what? I might redshirt you, but give me 3 years and I promise you, I'll do right by you. So that I want to talk to our guest about that as well, because I'm curious how this has kind of worked out on their end and whether there's something that feels maybe transferable to Maryland.
Our guest being Andrew Hattersley, by the way, he's a staff writer at Gig'em 247, which is the 24/7 Sports Texas A&M channel or whatever you call it, page.
Yeah, he's been he was there for all 6 of Buzz Williams' years, so he knows him and his system, his recruiting, his personality. He knows that all really well.
Yeah, so he'll be coming up in about 15 minutes. Yeah, you were talking about the tournaments. I love that. People have been clamoring for early season schedules. Tertian schedules were always awful. Willards were a little better, but man, it looks like it's going to be big names, a lot of big names and a lot of good games early in the season, and they're going to lose some, but so what? I'd rather play big games and lose some. That ends up being good for you in the tournament anyway. It ends up helping your analytic numbers, all that stuff. So, and obviously it makes you a tougher team, right, Duke?
He's from the ISO school of scheduling, so it'll be fun for fans. That's been a top 3 to 5 complaint in the past couple decades, I would say, is poor schedules, non-exciting.
I was going to kind of say he's kind of is a poor man's Izzo or a poor man's Kelvin Sampson, the gritty 10-person roster where everybody's tough and everybody plays hard and there's not really many superstars. It seems like he's that, but kind of the poor man's version of it because he hasn't had the success those two have had.
Yeah, they're definitely like going out with an axe in the backyard every day and like chopping down trees and
literally doing practice sessions where they put a cover on the rim and they throw it up so everybody's just fighting for rebounds.
And we're talking about it like it's awesome right now, knowing in like 8 months there's going to be some game they just lost like 57-38 or something, and we're going to be like, oh my god,
they shot 32%, and
that's the thing. Like you can't knock his system. He's won everywhere he's been. Paul said it. It's all about continuity. Even now, I mean, he's having to use the portal more this year because of the situation. But even now, when it's all about the portal, he's getting freshmen, redshirting them, developing them. It's crazy the loyalty almost everyone seems to show. I was writing about his assistant coaches. He's bringing all 3 of his main assistant coaches from Texas A&M. I wrote about that today. 2 of them are already there. They have pretty good resumes. Steve Roccaforte is really impressive. I'd heard his name before, but I had no reason to really learn about him. He's in the Assistant Coaches Hall of Fame. Like, who ever knew that existed? But he's got like 37 NBA players he's recruited that he's signed, and really good X's and O's. So, the staff looks pretty good. But anyways, these players, they stick with him. So I think Paul's right. You won't have as many transfers because once you sign up for like the Buzz Williams experience, you're unless you just hate it or whatever, you're pretty much down for life. The assistants, every single one of them has coached under him. I think at Marquette, Virginia Tech. Roccaforte went somewhere else for a little while. The other guys, Devin Johnson, the guy who's from Virginia, literally started under him as a student manager at New Orleans and has never left his side. So it's like a cult of Buzz, not to say that in a negative way, but it's a whole different thing that we're going to see now. It's not like the average, and Willard's kind of doing the same thing to somewhat by bringing all the players and coaches with him, but I don't think the grind is quite the same.
The players Buzz is bringing are better than the players Willard's taking with him.
So far, man. He got Chris Jeffrey, which is a nice pickup, but he's a freshman. They don't do much for you right away.
But compared to Andre Mills, comparable.
Well, you're not going to know until they
but
ratings-wise, yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And Malachi Palmer, I haven't seen. I don't know if he's gotten any other commitments.
Did Kapare commit there? Or
Kapare went too, right?
Last I saw, there was a good chance he might have today. I can't if I leave the house for 2 hours, there's like 18 news items when I get back.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not following a lot of Villanova news here, but
me neither.
Yeah. But Rice is visiting there, I think maybe tomorrow, and I still feel like he'll probably go to Tennessee, reunite with Gillespie. Those two got really tight, which I posted. I wrote that's going to be a little painful for some Maryland fans to watch that, and everybody said, no, I'll root for them. But I think when the season comes around and you're seeing that the ex-girlfriend except there's 2 of them, we'll see. I don't think anybody blames them for leaving, but
yeah, I think that's it. I mean, you'll watch them and be like, damn, well, that would have been nice to run back again. But I don't think anybody's upset that they left. I mean, it just kind of is what it is, and it makes you wonder. I don't even think if Willard stuck around, he would have been able to keep both of them around as it was anyway. Like those price tags just
Rice maybe.
It's interesting you say that because I talked to Gillespie's dad yesterday about some of those scenarios. honestly, there's been so much news about commitments and this event they're playing and football stuff. I haven't had a chance to write it up, so I'm going to save it for tomorrow. There's a teaser, but he was very open about things. And I mean, he didn't call them names, but he didn't soften any of the blows.
Ooh.
But one thing he did say, anyways, the reason he prompted me is he said Gillespie his son would have stayed if the whole coaching staff and Rice had stayed. I mean, who knows? You never know. It's a lot of money involved, obviously.
Yeah. If he's making, it depends on what the delta is. If it's 2 million versus 1 million, you got to kind of go, right? If it's a few $100,000, maybe you make a lifestyle decision. I don't know, but
yeah, he probably would have taken 85% of whatever he got. Although he could have gotten more by going to Villanova. I was told Willard threw about $3 million at him. I don't think he's getting quite that much from Tennessee because it was desperation on his part.
Oh my God! How sad are you? How sad are you, by the way, if you're a college basketball player that finished 5 years ago?
Well, not even 5. I was thinking about this the other day.
Just a couple, yeah.
A couple.
This the other day, Jameer Young, his first year, he got $175,000 coming out of Charlotte, and that seemed like a decent amount. Well, they were paying him pretty well, ooh. And then the next year, he, after he obviously had an amazing first season, he wanted more, and Willard was just kind of ignoring him during the.
I remember that now.
And Jameer Young was like, "Why isn't this guy even calling me or whatever?" And so he ended up getting, I think, maybe $250 or $275, and it seemed like a lot. And if that was this year, 2 years later, he's getting 10 times that.
Yep. Man, how bitter. Man, you got to be bitter about that, seeing it happen. But I guess it happens in all sports. You leave, and then 5 years later, he's making these astronomical numbers.
It's never happened this dramatically, though, from 0 to 3 million.
Right. That's the thing. It's just happened so quick is the thing.
Yeah,
it's like if you were a pro baseball player back in the 80s, you're looking at these contracts now being like, what in the absolute crap are we talking about here? But that's quite a difference of decades, not a difference of like a year or two.
Yeah. Generational wealth. Hey, we got some good questions in the chat room. Can I pop some of those up for you guys?
Yeah.
Here's this one from RP Quigg. Any assistant coaches with Maryland ties? I haven't heard. I think I know the answer. Okay.
No,
I mean, that's what Jeff's talking about, people buying into the Buzz circus. I mean, so is Maryland. I mean, he's bringing the whole circus and the tent and the animals and the ringleader and the whole thing's coming up from Texas A&M. So
and he has no problem pushing whoever that is out the door to get his guy in there, which is not anything against him. Everybody does it. It's cutthroat. Kevin Willard today let go of Dwayne Anderson, who had been there forever, a local guy, played for St. John's, played for Villanova, beloved there, been there at least probably 10 to 15 years, and just he gone.
Next one from Seftical. Wasn't today the deadline for NIL being allocated? It was the deadline before the House settlement, so it doesn't have to go through governance. After that, then everything over $600 has to go through governance. That's the
only gray area there. It seems like you got pushed back.
Did it?
Yeah. So the judge on Monday. The Monday was the final hearing, and the judge said that there were a couple issues that she thought might need to be further either litigated or what have you. So it sounded like she was going to eventually approve the settlement. But that's not going to be the end of it. So I don't think anybody really has a handle on specifically how and when all this is going to go down.
If they had stuck to that, do you know how many kids would have been committing per second the past few days?
Yeah.
Just to get that money while they could?
Yeah, the fact they haven't means everybody in the industry knows that this is going to drag for a while.
Yep. Which is good for Maryland because they need, if you're going by the new 15-player scholarship, they need 10 more players.
Yeah. We got 5 minutes until Andrew Hattersley gets here, the correspondent from Texas A&M. Let's go here. It's got to be 100%, right? Mike Winters asked, what percentage of players get NIL money? They're all getting something.
Well, it depends what level. Are you talking about Big Ten and SEC or like the MAC and not even the one with 1A, Like those kids down in those low levels, I'm sure some of them are getting a few bucks, but on this level at least, Pretty much. I mean, you might have a 12th man who was a walk-on or whatever who's not getting much still.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah.
But it's a wide range.
From Go Terps, I know the Blake Harper stuff was fake, but do you think Maryland has a shot at him anyway?
I haven't. I've been asked at least, I don't know how many times about it the past few days, just because these fake Twitter accounts keep reporting fake news so they can like fist bump their buddies in the basement, while they're eating pizza rolls or something. I don't understand what the end game is on those, but it's really annoying.
Attract attention and get followers, and maybe you get lucky.
How many followers you're going to get from being fake college basketball scoop guy,
I don't know.
Just that's like everybody, please, just when you see something on social media, do like the basest amount of investigation to decide whether you feel like this is real or not. If it's like a guy with 80 followers and like a Terp avatar saying, "Hey, Nate Oates is coming to Maryland," you might want to look into that a little bit before you start the 6 new threads on the message board. Be like, "I think Nate Oates is coming to Maryland. Check out this tweet." Like,
yeah.
Come on.
I don't mind people asking something. Not everybody's going to be immediately catch every scam or whatever.
Valid. That's fine.
But
that's me.
It's like the third day after, like when it was 3 days ago, the fake account, and people are saying it, or they're saying it with like.
They're still saying it.
Like
but I don't go to Twitter. I don't, and I go on show days mostly. So, but I see people post stuff on the board, and then I'm like, oh, okay, maybe there's something there, because I'm not even seeing it on Twitter. I don't see how many followers they have. I just see someone posted on the message board, and I'm like, oh, okay, maybe something's happening there.
But that's the problem. Like you shouldn't have to, I'm trying to save you the trouble. Like if the person is just like, okay, well, like, yeah, maybe this is not a source I should trust. You could say like, hey, some idiot is saying, Nate Oates to Maryland is a very different thing than like Nate Oates is coming to Maryland according to real college basketball reporter guy on X.com.
Here's the thing. It reached a new high a couple weeks ago. You guys remember that? There was a Maryland burner account that tweeted a report about Nate Oates being interested in the Maryland.
Yes. And the AD at Alabama actually had to go on record about it, which was hilarious.
Which is unbelievable that it got to that you can pull that off.
Nate Oates with his like what $20 million buyout right now or something. Like, sure, that's going to happen.
But Harper, I've seen a few of those little tweets, but I haven't heard any real connection between him and Maryland, and it's not like they're going out of their way to try to get local guys right now. So normally you might assume like, oh, local guy, David Cox or Tony Skinn or whoever is going to go after him. But these are guys from Texas who are just trying to install their program, so you're probably it's not going to be as much of an automatic thing when you see a kid like Harper, who's maybe one of the best freshmen in the country, albeit at Howard, but kid from Gonzaga in DC. But no, I haven't heard any like solid connection there. You never know though.
I was just going to ask another one, but our guest Andrew Hattersley has joined. Let's add him in.
What's up, guys? Good evening.
How's it going, Andrew?
Good. How are you guys doing? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you on, get some perspective, because I don't know if you heard, but Maryland has a new basketball coach, and he used to coach at the school you cover.
Yep.
So we're hoping you have some insight for us. What can the Maryland fans and alumni and everybody there expect out of Buzz Willams?
Yeah, no doubt. Obviously, I think he built a really solid program at Texas A&M, as he's done at Virginia Tech, as he's done at Marquette. I actually grew up in Wisconsin when he was a coach at Marquette, so I watched him a little bit there, and then kind of came back and covered him throughout his entire time when he was at Texas A&M, and built a really solid program. This is the first time they've gone to the tournament 3 straight years since Mark Turgeon was at A&M, which is obviously also a very familiar name.
Don't do that, man. I'm sorry. You can't.
Like you just. I need a trigger warning before you do that.
You just shot.
Very familiar name, obviously for Maryland fans too, and it's the similarities, are kind of there, and so it was kind of his tenure was kind of got off to a rocky start. but over the last 3 years, they've really competed. They found kind of some nice pieces out of the transfer portal. But I think at the same time, next year was going to be a rebuild, whether he was at Texas A&M or not. I think there was kind of an understanding there going into this year that they were kind of all in. They had 8 seniors on the roster, and it was kind of, it was kind of pushing all the chips in the middle of the table, and that's kind of where they were last year with the roster, and kind of understood that was their year, and next year was going to be kind of a rebuild.
Andrew, first, what do you think about Pharrell Payne? How good could he be? He seems like the highest upside guy they've gotten. And who else do you really like among the guys who've come over from Texas A&M?
I think that was a fantastic addition. I think that's probably the one that's going to hurt the most from a Texas A&M perspective. I think he was probably the best big man that played under Buzz Williams at A&M. It was kind of that missing piece that they needed. They had Julius Marble. He was really good as well. But when it came to Pharrell Payne, obviously he kind of shined when the lights were brightest. And I think that's the biggest thing. Even in the tournament loss to Michigan, I think it was like 25-9 or somewhere in that range. He was really, really good. He was really good against Yale. Really good back to the basket scorer. And I think that was something that kind of added something for Buzz Williams and that staff they didn't have previously. That was a fantastic addition out of the transfer portal, and a guy that can kind of take it on his own from the perimeter too, and create shots for himself. If you're in an offensive rut, he can kind of get you out of it and get some points. I think, honestly, if there was one kind of criticism or downside, was when people kind of saw the way he played in the NCAA tournament, they thought, man, why didn't we go to him more throughout the year? Because, it just felt like at times he was so dominant. Took him some time to kind of adjust to the physicality of the SEC early on. But honestly, start to finish throughout the year, he was as good as you can ask him to be. And defensively is really good too, can kind of affect shots around the rim. Solomon Washington, we kind of felt late in the year, had every argument to be an all SEC on the all SEC defensive team. Surprised he wasn't. He can guard 1 through 5. He's really athletic. He's an explosive athlete. I think there was kind of, I think we expected his offensive game to be a little more developed than it is now. I think that was kind of coming into year 3, kind of thought maybe he was going to take that big jump forward offensively, because he's just super talented, super athletic, has been playing since he was a freshman. And so I think that's kind of the next step for him. If he can really figure it out offensively, he can shoot it. He can kind of, but can he create for himself? Can he kind of score off the dribble? Is I think the next phase of his game. But he's an awesome athlete, and I think it's another really nice. I think those are 2 really nice additions. I think, when you look at the younger players, Andre Mills was a really intriguing player, and a guy that I think a lot of folks around A&M were really excited about heading into next year. Obviously Wade Taylor kind of had that point guard spot locked down, and so Mills kind of came in and had a chance to redshirt, and was part of, it's a system Buzz has kind of developed over the last couple of years called the Blue Team. And he kind of talked about it this year, that it's kind of the not development, but it's kind of guys that a little bit like your practice squad in a way, but it's kind of used for developmental purposes as well. And Andre Mills is one of the guys on that team this year. George Turkson was as well. And I think they really liked what they saw from them, and kind of thought they were going to be ready to kind of take over the point guard spot heading into next year. He's a slasher, can get to the rim, draws a lot of fouls, which kind of fits perfectly with the way Buzz Williams wants to play. He likes lefties. Mills obviously can kind of, attack the paint, and I think that's something that'll fit well in Buzz's system.
Andrew, we're coming at college sports from a bit of a different perspective, because obviously A&M is a traditional football power. Maryland's more of a traditional basketball school. I'm kind of curious how you would articulate this, what it's like to coach basketball in A&M in the current system. does Buzz run a program that feels like he had the resources to win at an elite level, the support, whether just financial or with the fans and things like that? Like, how would you describe the way the system was down there for him the last few years?
Yeah, I think it's a program where if you're winning, right, like people are going to get into it. I don't think it's definitely not first. And with the way A&M baseball was last year, it was kind of jockeying whether like A&M baseball was, second or whether basketball was second. And so, I think the support was definitely there. There were things that I think need to be improved and things that were talked about under Ross Bjork. They really need a new arena. They really need new kind of that's been a discussion point throughout the entire time that Buzz Willams was at A&M. The difficulty that they were kind of having with Ross Bjork was, do you build a new arena or do you renovate the arena? What do you do on that front? And that was kind of an open question when Ross Bjork left for Ohio State. And I think those, that discussion about getting a new arena, getting new facilities had kind of calmed down a little bit under Buzz Willams, kind of trying to figure out what they want to do in terms of where the arena is. I think the support is definitely there. When you look at what they were able to do from a retention standpoint, keeping Wade Taylor, going out and getting a Pharrell Payne, going out and getting Solomon Washington. I think it could have been better. I think it could have been more. But I think, in terms of keeping those guys, I think there was definitely an investment there. But that's kind of the next challenge about where everything's kind of going in college sports. And, from an A&M standpoint, obviously football is kind of king being in Texas. And so you're not at a basketball first school, but I think there was certainly support enough there to be good. If they had made a deep tournament run, then I think the support would have kind of gone through the roof. And when they didn't, it had kind of plateaued a little bit.
Hey, Andrew, there is some talk online that perhaps the relationship between Buzz and Texas A&M might have soured towards the end of the tenure there, and that maybe they weren't that unhappy that he was leaving. Is that true, first of all? And do you have anything way to elaborate on that?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think part of the whole way this played out over the last couple of weeks, at least from what we've been able to understand and gather, and I think it's important. There's a couple layers to this, right? The first is, as I mentioned, going all in basically with 8 of the top 10 contributors. I think there was really a feeling around College Station that they'd gotten to the second, they'd lost to Penn State, obviously in the first round a couple of years ago, get to the second round last year, lose to Houston, and then have this year's team come in with 8 of their top 10 contributors. There was really a feeling of okay, this is the team that's going to get to the second weekend. It's going to get to the Sweet 16, Elite 8, maybe that type of team. And so when they didn't, I think there was kind of the question of, okay, is this with eight of their top 10 players, as seniors, is this as far as Buzz is going to be able to take the program, be a really good program that got to the second round? And, is there kind of a retool that's needed? So that was definitely, I think, part of it. The other part of it is I think there was really a feeling around College Station that they might be able to get Chris Beard. And so I think they were okay in that sense. If Buzz went to Maryland, that would open the door for them to really make the pursuit at Chris Beard. And I think they really at times felt like they were going to get him. Obviously he ended up staying in Oxford. And that was kind of the real, that was a major setback for A&M to not land Chris Beard, because I think that was part of the calculus. But I think there was also an understanding, I think Buzz probably would have loved to get an extension, right? And I think he was kind of looking at his contract, looking at next year being a rebuild, and understanding he might only have, 3 years. I think he had 3 years left on his contract through 2028, if I've got that right. And so, Buzz has been kind of actively kind of looking around for jobs this offseason. He was in discussions about the Arkansas job last year. He was in discussions for the Texas Tech job the year before that. And so there's always kind of been, floating kind of rumors and, he was in discussion for the Miami job, the Xavier job. And so it always just felt like maybe something was off there, that both sides kind of understood a fresh start might be best.
So the biggest thing I've noticed about him, obviously, is it's like a traveling company, what he's got, right? Like, all the same coaches year after year after year. You have to buy in and be like, again, I used cult earlier. People have said the cult of Buzz, just because people just buy in and then they're there for life. The players tend to stick around. And then also just his kind of quirks add to that. How would you just kind of describe what his operation in general? Because it just feels different from almost anything I've seen.
I actually love that description. I was getting ready for the show, and I tuned in for a little bit, and I heard kind of the Buzz Travel Agency, and loved the way you put that, because they do kind of have this nucleus, and I think it's helped them a lot, because they've got a lot of familiarity, right? Like they understand, like Devin Johnson, I think he's a perfect example, was with him at New Orleans, was with him at Marquette, was with him at Virginia Tech, and then came with him to A&M, and now Maryland. Like, there's certain players where he can look at and say, okay, Buzz, remember that, David Kubian, who we had at Marquette. Like, this kid reminds me of David Kubian, and they have that sort of connection where they've kind of go way, way, way back, where they can identify players and be able to kind of have their player comps about how they might fit into the system. And I think when you look at Devin Johnson, you look at Lyle Wolf, and you look at Steve Rockefeller, they all kind of know how Buzz operates, and they all know kind of what Buzz is looking for. And so, when you look at them in a unit, I think there's not really much dysfunction. Like, they all kind of know exactly, they're all kind of pulling in the same direction. Now they are, I would say, insular in a way that they've kind of got their group, and that's like kind of their bunker, and when they make decisions, they make it amongst them. And I think that was kind of the feeling around A&M too, that they were kind of in Reed, and that was kind of their little basketball bunker of them. But they kind of know what each other does well. They know what they're looking for, and Buzz has his system too. Like, I don't know if he's going to do the same at Maryland, but when he was at A&M, like, I think Devin Johnson was in charge of defense, Lyle Wolf was in charge of offense, and Steve Rockefeller was in charge of kind of what he calls special teams, out of bounds plays out of timeouts, after timeout plays. And so they've each kind of got their sort of role, and then Buzz kind of oversees that. And they've got something they call 2-day prep, where the staff knows exactly what they're going to present to them on 2-day prep, on 1-day prep, what they're going to present to the players. And so they have like their system down, that they kind of know, they trust in it, they believe in it. And that works. And that I think Buzz really values continuity. It goes for the same for the players. Like at A&M, they had the highest retention rate in the country, I believe. And so he really values retention, knowing people, and going year to year with them.
What so like obviously he's very charismatic and he's a super hard worker, but what's the like secret sauce to why people just seem to gravitate toward him and work hard for him, and a lot of them just like never leave? Is it like, and is he fun? Was he fun to cover, or is it more like does it feel like shtick that sometimes it's forced, or is it like this is like a funny joyride?
A little bit at times it felt a little forced. Like he kind of has his mannerisms that you kind of get used to, and know he's very careful with his words. And he had certain things, like he has certain things that make him kind of difficult to cover. Like I think last year when all the sports betting stuff was coming out, there was kind of an announcement at the beginning of the year, like, hey, I'm not going to talk injuries the entire year. And so, if a guy went out with a ankle injury, you wouldn't really, you had to kind of dig behind the scenes.
Well, him and Loxley will get along then.
Yeah, right. And so, it was kind of one of those things, like a guy would have an ankle injury and you were like, not now with the SEC had the availability reports, that was kind of the workaround, was you kind of could understand whether a guy was going to be in or out, but he's really careful about discussing injuries. And, he's interesting to cover because he's going to get into a lot of the weeds of statistics, and you're going to really get an idea of where he's coming from mentally. And so, he was fun to cover. He was definitely tough to break through at times. But he'll also engage with the media and understand where they're coming from. And, from that standpoint, and I forgot, did you ask one other part of that?
No, that you covered it well.
Good deal.
Yeah, and he stole my question about how he was like to cover, so I'm going to ask a different one instead. So he's been at 3 major stops now, from Marquette, Virginia Tech, and A&M, and I know you've covered him at least 2 of those stops. So, like, it seems like he's almost kind of a different coach at each place he's been. Virginia Tech teams used to be really fast, put up a ton of points, lots of threes. Then he goes to A&M, and it's kind of like a bit of that Kelvin Sampson defensive monster, athletic 1 through 5. Do you have a sense as to what drives that? Like, is there a recruiting strategy that's behind that, and he looks at the kids he likes and says, you know what, all right, this is the best way to win with these guys? Do you feel like he goes in with the plan based on the opposition, the conference, where he's at, where he feels like he's able to recruit, and then goes for that style that way?
Yeah, so he's definitely got a style of player he's looking for, and this goes to the retention rate too, is they're like really honest in recruiting about, this is kind of what we see you in, and I think that goes into some of the retention rate, is like, when you come, exactly what you're coming for. Like, you're not, because it's all been discussed, and that might, there might be recruitments especially for 5 stars. He's not going to be in the one and done game or anything like that. And so from a recruiting standpoint, like, it starts there, that they really want guys that are going to rebound. If you don't play defense, you're probably not getting on the court. And so it's defense first, it's rebounding. And then I think they do kind of fit to the style of the conference. I know one of the things that kind of I tried to explain to our A&M fans quite a bit was they asked a lot, like, well, why aren't we recruiting like 6'10" centers, right, or 7-foot centers? And I think there was really a feeling around A&M that wasn't with the style of play you were going to have to deal with going against the Alabamas, Floridas of the world that are playing 1,000,000 miles per hour and shooting a bunch of threes, that, having a 7-foot center that's, lugging around is probably not the way to go. Now, a slower paced game might have necessitated having, a 7-foot center that could fit that style. And so they transition more to like the 6'7" to 6'9" forwards that could guard multiple positions, could, rebound. Maybe they were a little bit undersized, but they really got after it on the glass. And they really wanted to get to the free throw line. That's kind of the big thing, is they want guys that are attacking the rim, attacking the paint, could play multiple positions, were versatile, kind of go towards more like the positionless style of basketball, is where they kind of trended to. But I think they do kind of have a feel for the conference. Like I was thinking earlier today, I was thinking with the Big Ten and some of the good centers that are in the Big Ten, I wonder if he transitions more to, those 6'10", 7-foot centers that maybe fit in that conference more than, playing kind of the up and down track meets that you're going to get with, the Alabamas, the LSUs, the Floridas of the world and the Kentuckys that play that way. And so I think he does have a feel for the conference and kind of recruits there, but it starts with defense. You have to be able to rebound. And then he kind of finds the rest with it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting for us because it took like Maryland hiring an analytics guy to convince Kevin Willard that 3-point shooters were good. So I think you look at some of the shooting stats from those A&M teams the last couple of years, you get a little nervous because so I'm just kind of curious where that comes from in his mind.
Does
anyway.
he look happy or disappointed when a 3 goes in?
It's weird because like that was the thing, right? Like they recruited some good shooters. Like Hayden Hefner was a good shooter coming out of high school. CJ Wilcher was a good shooter. There were some other guys that they recruited that were good shooters, and they just never shot the ball well at A&M. It was kind of just something that was kind of openly brought up in media. Like Buzz Williams would say, I know we shoot it terribly.
Sounds like Turgeon.
I know we do this. And it would just kind of be something that, like, you know, I know they tried, like they recruited shooters, and it was just kind of like it never clicked. Like they were always in the bottom, near the bottom of the country. Now they did a lot of other things well, right? Like they offensive rebound the heck out of it. They get to the free throw line. The other thing I think that Maryland fans will get used to is they really have a philosophy of guarding the paint and keeping teams out of the paint and not fouling. That's something that's kind of a core philosophy defensively. But the side effect of that is they give up a lot of threes and kind of live with, you know, giving up threes and the percentages that, you know, they need to clean up they need to clean up the defensive glass. They really emphasize, they call it turkeys, which is getting 3 stops in a row. That's kind of their big core defensive philosophy, is keep guys out of the paint, get 3 stops in a row as many times as possible. You know, they track turkeys, they track things like that, track how many times a team gets into the paint. But offensively, I mean, that was kind of the knock on them at A&M, that they just, for some reason, were not able to shoot the ball well.
Hey, Andrew, we end every interview by playing fill in the blank. I'm going to ask you 5 rapid-fire questions. Say the first thing that comes to your mind, okay?
Sounds good.
The number of years Buzz Williams will coach at Maryland is?
6.
The next year's NCAA tournament, Maryland will make it to the round of? You can
30.
say not if you think you're not going to. You think not?
I think 32. I think they'll get to the second round. I think with Payne there and Washington, they probably get to the second round.
Okay. If Maryland and Texas A&M played in football 10 times, Texas A&M would win?
7.
I'm trying to be nice with that one.
Generous.
Yeah.
That's generous.
They lose some games they shouldn't lose, so that's
hey, we did pretty well against the other Texas team we played at home and home with.
2-0 against the rival. The best brisket.
They'll take that. That's music to their ears.
The best brisket in Texas is at
Terry Black's, which I'm going next week.
Nice. Last one. Beat the hell out of
Texas.
I figured you would say that.
Yeah, we agree.
Beat the hell out of everybody is the other one.
Yeah. I know you guys have a lot. You guys have a lot of traditions. Every school does. Texas A&M has like the arms, the swaying thing, the fire pit. They beat the hell out of Gig 'em, which is your site. Like there's a whole bunch of things. You guys are way more than most.
Yep, absolutely. It's a passionate fan base, and you know, President Welsh was talking at Bucky McMillan's press conference and said, you know, Bucky.
It was awkward watching him do that, by the way.
Pardon?
You make the new coaches come in and do that stuff, and it's like really weird. They're not
jump right into the culture, right? Jump right into it.
Yeah.
Hey, on the behind you it says Aggies all-time greats, and there's eight. Who are they?
Yeah, we've got Luke Jokel, we've got Kristen Michael, we've got Ryan Swoop. We've got Johnny Manziel, Von Miller, Mike Evans, Ryan Tannehill, and Leland McElroy.
Oh, okay.
I thought it was Mark Turgeon. Yeah.
Yep.
He didn't make it.
No, he's on the Maryland all-time greats.
He's not there either.
Andrew, we normally reserve this for Maryland Terrapins, but anybody who comes on the show, we allow to do it as well. Do us a favor and say, this is Andrew Hattersley, and you're listening to IMS Radio.
This is Andrew Hattersley, and you're listening to IMS Radio.
Thank you very much. He is at Andrew Hats on X, and also you can find him at Gig'em247. Thank you, Andrew, so much for joining us and giving us the inside info, what to expect about Buzz Williams.
Appreciate it, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. See ya.
So hold on. The main takeaways are.
Oh no! So first of all, Andrew, well done. We're not lamenting your appearance on the show.
I was gonna say, what's Larry upset about?
the comparisons to Turgeon. Oh no,
yeah, they're scary.
Oh, no.
My main takeaways are they don't really make a lot of threes. They're going to give up like crazy open threes, like just an egregious number of wide open threes. And he likes to recruit crappy 2-stars and develop them.
Music to Jets ears.
Oh,
Just
goodness.
The more things change. No, I mean, I'm being sarcastic. I mean, those are, he recruits well. He gets the bottom.
He makes a tournament.
I mean, he wins at a high rate. I think he's a better coach than either of the past two coaches. It's just you have to deal with that whole.
They're going to have to deal with the style. I had a question for him. It was that seeing that the Big Ten is now the best football conference in the country now, are you okay settling for being the best basketball conference? I wanted to see what he said about that.
I don't know. I don't. It's hard to have a beef with A&M. They're just kind of there, and we're kind of here, and good luck beating all the other schools that we don't like either. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting, and I think there's going to need to be a little bit of patience. Because I mean, you're right. Like if Buzz builds a team with a similar style to the one that A&M has had, I think the defensive intensity and the things that Willard teams definitely didn't have, and certainly most Turgeon teams didn't either on the defensive end, and with the offensive rebounding and things like that, will get people excited to some degree. But the threes are like the old saying, the chicks dig the long ball. That's the 3-pointer in college basketball right now. You can't win without shooting threes pretty well. You just can't. Not at an elite level. I mean, even Houston. Talk about that Houston team. Everybody thinks that was just a bunch of goons. They had 3 guys who shot 40% from 3 for the year. That's how they got to the final. They just couldn't shoot them and make them in the final. Yeah. So I'll be curious to see how that, just stylistically, I'll be curious to see how that works out and whether fans are willing to give him a little bit of leeway because of his record and because of who he is. And part of why I asked that question about what kind of support he had at a football school or a baseball school too. I mean, their baseball program is basically like a pro team. And whether it might be a situation where you feel like you might be able to level up a little bit with, being at more of a program that's kind of ready to win if you get the right guy in. So I'm curious how that's going to go, because it could, if it goes south quick, it could get really ugly really fast around here.
Especially because there's a lot of people already hell-bent on disliking him and figuring out the reasons why later.
I won't even say that. Not only that, just the idea that the Elmore letter, the idea that okay, we had a coach who was here for 3 years who was miserable and ditched us in the middle of our best tourney run in like a decade. And the reaction to that is almost always okay, let's bring it in-house. Let's bring in the people that we know this place, that love this place. You might not be able to find an alumni coach, but somebody who's willing to come in and say, okay, I get it. I belong here. I'm going to be part of you. I'm going to come. I'm going to make the sacrifice to be part of your thing.
He's doing the
Whereas
opposite.
Buzz is doing the exact opposite. He's just like, I'm bringing my thing. Yeah, I'm bringing my thing, and you're going to like it or not, but that's the way it's going to be, and that's fine if you win.
Right.
But if you don't, man,
we've said that about 5 different things. It's fine if you win. When it comes to Buzz, 5 different times.
There's a reason they say just win, baby, right?
Yeah. I mean, so it'll be interesting to say. I mean, I was not a huge fan of the hire. The more I've read, the more I've kind of paid attention to what's going on. I'm fine with it. It's it wasn't a bad hire. It wasn't the way I thought they should go, but it's certainly he's a better guy coming in than Turge or Willard were at those stages of the career they were hired to Maryland, period. Yep. Absolutely, without question. So
he's a level up.
He's a level up. So hopefully he can level up his game to win here at a rate that's going to make Maryland fans happy. I just, for his sake, hope he can do it quick, because I don't think there's going to be a lot of patience, especially in the portal era.
Yeah, I think the psychological torture fans have gone through in the past 20 years, from the national title to then kind of fizzling those final few years, thinking you have Sean Miller. You don't get him, you get Turge. He's good, but nothing. There's no sizzle there, no postseason success to speak of. Then you get Willard, and a lot of people are disappointed by that. But then all of a sudden, that first year, he has a good year, wins a game in the tournament when no one's picking them to do anything. So then that's another kind of high with Jameer Young. Then you go into last year, which was one of the worst seasons I've ever watched.
Ever.
And then the roller coaster goes back up this year into Derek Queen and the Sweet 16, Crab 5, all this stuff. And right as you're hitting that pinnacle with that team, Willard is, like being a philanderer, basically, and it all crashes down. So all that to say, the next guy after all of those ups and downs is not going to get a lot of patience.
It's not.
Yep.
We have been doing basketball for about an hour, but there's some football stuff that recently came out, some practice reports. Did you want to go over any of that? I think people would be particularly interested in the quarterback battle.
Yeah, it seems really even. Malik Washington, nobody would be surprised to hear that, they feel like he's as advertised, if not better, still has some rough edges to polish. My gut, as I wrote today, is that Justin Martin, the UCLA transfer, who's looked pretty good in camp, probably gets the job just because there's no reason to put all that on a freshman that early. You can work him in, and if he ends up being better after a month or so of experience, then you can make him the starter. So I still feel like, he'll be the relief pitcher, basically. But every report I've heard is he looks really good.
And
I went to practice the other day. It was a donor event, not a journalist event. So I don't want to get too far into details because I appreciate that they do that. That backstage pass for the Terps Club is a really cool.
There's a video at the.
Really cool. Yeah, sorry, I left the video at home. Don't have that with me. I'll pass it along behind the scenes. But I mean, just on a general sense, clearly those two are the top two quarterbacks right now. They're getting a lot of the reps. Martin's a big kid. He's got a lot of physical tools, and Malik certainly can chuck the ball around. I think there's a few rough edges, certainly that things he got away with in high school, he's not going to be able to get away with the speed on college defenses. But he also, fits some balls into places that I don't think he should have been able to do. So, yeah, I don't know how that's going to go. Is one practice, but he certainly looks the part as a guy that you're going to be able to hopefully depend on down the line. Otherwise, I still worry about the receivers room. I think Braden Wislowski actually went to the transfer portal today, and funny enough, he was one of the guys that kind of popped for me when I was at practice.
Uh-oh.
So, yeah, whoops. You still really need Farouk is still out hurt because he had foot surgery, I think, in the offseason, so they're taking it easy on him. You need Octavian Smith. He's gotta be the guy to jump in there. Shalik Knotts is still around. I think Ryan Manning showed some things here and there. But, Mekhi White, you need some of these guys to really step up. I'd be shocked if they don't get somebody else out of the portal after spring ball because I just don't think they have enough on the outside right now. Linebackers jump off the field. I mean, they're just as a group look really good, and it always kind of goes back to the lines. The offensive line is big. A lot of big guys, man. Therese, Howerton, Heron, these are big dudes. Big Ten size lines for sure. Whether they can get the job done where it matters, you got to prove it before I'm going to believe it anymore. That goes on both sides of the ball. So, we'll see. But
Paul, we're both kind of on record saying we're nervous that they're not going to get to a bowl game again next year. After watching the practice, I know they're playing themselves. That's always the thing. Do you still have the same? Have you changed at all? Your opinion of the team, up or down?
No, I mean it's a one practice in April, man. It's hard to know anything. I think they got some work to do. And even if on paper, even if on paper you bring in some good talent, we've been burned by that before. I thought Husky would be pretty good last year. He was an all-conference MAC guy. That's not a much lower level than Big Ten. I thought he'd at least be able to be competent, but he came in, they basically had to turn him into a safety because he couldn't cover anybody on the outside by himself. So you just never entirely know what you're going to get. You just got to, see how it's going to work out.
Are there
Dante Joyner is the guy that they're saying is the real deal out of the transfers. The safety corner from Arkansas State. It sounds like he's going to be their best corner, maybe by a wide margin, but we'll see.
But there's still a spring transfer portal to go.
Yes.
So are you hearing anything, Jeff? Are they going to be aggressive, bringing in players?
I mean, they don't have a ton of spots. I haven't counted the scholarship count lately, but if I were Mike Loxley, I would definitely get a receiver or two, because Paul was right. There's not a lot of proven commodities or guys who are necessary. I mean, there's some guys who could be good, but you don't have a lot of playmakers there. I think maybe, I don't know, probably not another offensive lineman, since they've taken so many. You're definitely going to see a youth movement on the offensive line. Sounds like.
I still need a defensive lineman or two, don't they?
Yeah,
at least
probably,
an interior guy.
Yeah, you probably need at least one, maybe two D linemen. Those would be my main. I think they're pretty much maybe safety. You still don't have an entrenched guy. Husky, they like at safety, so they say he looks good. It'll be his second year in the Big Ten, second year after switching positions. But that other spot, I think all you have is Levain Scruggs right now, who could be good, but you don't know. He's only played a little bit, so I might consider getting a safety too.
Okay.
One thing I will mention, just because I'm always the bringer of bad news, but who's the running back who was hurt in high school and didn't play last year, Jeff?
Nolan Ray?
No, not Nolan. The other one. Dewan Johnson Williams.
Dewan Williams, yes.
Dewan Williams, yes. He looks very, very good. I think if those two are your 1-2 punch out of the backfield, they're going to be all right, because they're both kind of small, quick guys who kind of seem to fall forward for that extra yard every time. So I would expect good things there.
Yeah,
and the dude, the tight,
he would have gone to Alabama if he didn't have a big injury. I was told, anyways, his senior year he would have been in Bama or somewhere like that. So they love him.
And also that tight end transfer looked very good and got a lot of good reps yesterday or day before. So there's some talent. There's some talent out there.
Okay, that's good. All right, I was kind of struggling tonight time-wise. I forgot to get a non-res report from Wheels, so you guys, I'll just say what I know, and that's
Lacrosse lost to Rutgers, didn't they?
Well, Rutgers
first time ever.
What on earth is that?
They're ranked. It's not like they're the worst team ever, but yeah,
Rutgers.
It's their first loss, and they've lost 2 of their last 3 games, both in the Big Ten. The women's team, I think, is still somewhere between 5 and 10 ranked. And then the baseball team, I think, has lost 5 in a row, and they might be 14, 19, something like that. You guys can let me know if I'm wrong.
I said I'd go to one men's lacrosse game, and now they're losing all their games.
It's your fault.
Gymnastics. We're still going to the Valparaiso Invitational this weekend, right? For
gymnastics. No, that was last weekend, Jeff. They won. They came in first place. They had medalists in every single event.
Well there, yeah.
Yes, they were.
Well, they were very excited because we were going to go. So
next time,
yeah.
I have a pretty fun ending for the show for you guys. I normally do like a game either or, over under, true or false, all those kind of things. But I found online. Actually, it might have been on the Maryland website. I went to a bunch. A list of 15 traditions at the University of Maryland. Not all of them are sports related. About half are.
Oh, so Paul will obliterate me at this.
Well, you guys just work together, and we'll see if the chat can come up with any as well. There are 15, and we can alternate, and eventually it'll just turn into everybody shouting. So I want you guys to try and guess what the 15 traditions are at the University of Maryland.
That's all we're getting? Just 15 traditions?
There are 15 traditions, and about half of them are sports related, and half are just normal campus related.
So inflicting pain on the fans.
Yeah.
Quarterback ACL tears.
No.
We've
actually done all right on those so far. Let's not wish that back into existence.
One off.
Last couple of years.
Testudo rubbing Testudo's nose.
That is one. There you go, Jeff. Hang on. Let me mark this off. You got one. Yeah, there you go.
Here, let's give this guy credit.
Just Googling right now.
No, I'm not Googling. I'm getting ready for the mad dash of writing like 3 more articles when we get off.
The Demonette got one. Midnight Madness, the Midnight Run, correct?
Very good. So there's leaving offerings at Testudo statue for before finals, like liquor bottles and snacks and things.
It's not one of the
That's definitely a thing that they do. So, all right.
It's not one of the ones.
Some people dive in the fountains, I think. I don't know if that's after graduation or if that's...
That is it. Waiting in the ODK fountain. They call it Omicron Delta Kappa.
Sure.
McKeldin Mall. There you go. That is one. That was one of the non-sports traditions.
Football fight song.
No. Oh, wait. I'm sorry. It is. The victory song in Alma Mater is one. I'm sorry. Yes, it is. Very good.
Here, let's see. Antoine, is the flag drop count?
Flag drop is one of them. Nice job, Antoine.
Good call. Should have thought of that.
You guys had 5 out of 15. Right. I'll let you keep going for a couple more minutes.
The Oh Christmas Tree playing every on campus at noon. It's not Oh Christmas Tree. It's My Maryland, Oh Maryland, My Maryland, or whatever. But guess that's not on there.
How about Hey You Suck?
Hey You Suck's not there.
This is too open-ended for me, man. Like I was on campus 25 years ago.
I would say fighting on Knox Road, but that's all.
Yeah, I was going to say 3 a.m. fights at Ratsy's. Does that count?
We could come up with 15 funny ones to counteract these as well, too.
That would be right, actually.
Post-Duke riots on Route 1.
There you go.
Getting shot in the ass by a PG County cop with a rubber bullet.
Dave Hurt said bong hits and beer bongs.
That's every school.
There you go.
Going to Bentley's?
Yeah.
Outside the box a little bit, maybe. Probably not.
Wait. No. I thought it might have been, but no. Are you guys spent? You want me to tell you the others, or do you want to?
I'm kind of out of
bad coaching hires with ridiculous buyouts.
Yeah,
no, that's number 2. Just kidding.
Miserable AD hires.
All right, I'm going to tell you we've exhausted this. One of the ones you missed was the M photo, taking your picture with the M on the lawn. The basketball flash mob.
Okay,
one.
Fair.
The Terp walk before every home game, the Terp walk with the band and the cheerleaders and all of that, and the football team, the red-white game. Okay, I guess is one they listed.
In front of tens of people every year.
Every school has.
So one of them now they're mostly they're all non-football. The rest of the Maryland Day is one. Ice cream at the dairy. Ice cream at the dairy.
How about Art Attack? Art Attack on there? Do they even do Art Attack anymore?
Well, is that part of Maryland Day?
No, that was the like May concert they used to have on the mall before they moved it to Bird Stadium because everybody was getting too hammered. And
no,
they definitely don't want to use this list when they're like recruiting students against Michigan and Wisconsin and some of these other schools.
No, I don't think they do.
Demonette said Ice Cream at the Ferry definitely counts. Okay, so the First Look Fair, there's an annual student organization showcase where all the clubs, people walk around to join the clubs they want. Giving Day donations. Every school's got a Giving Day.
This is sad, man.
Was this from a Reddit post?
That's it?
No, there's 2 more. One of them's tailgating. Tailgating is in the list. A big part, here, let's see what it says. A big part of football game days with tailgates held at locations like Mallet Lane Garage, Lot 1B, and Lot Z, often organized by fraternities, sororities, and fan groups like The Crew. Okay.
I feel like somebody forgot to write that list until the deadline was approaching.
And the last one is UMD bucket list, a list of 20 must-do activities before graduation that all students engage in. So there you go, which is probably a lot of these other things, by the way.
Where did this come from?
Tailgate.
I think I got it from the website, from the Maryland website.
Okay, this needs to be fixed. That is pathetic.
Every Maryland student should have Giving Day on their bucket list.
Yeah. I know all the kids are just waiting for Giving Day every year, or tailgating. What a novel concept that we let us pour drinks amongst each other before games of sport. Very unique.
That's not. I take it back. That wasn't even off Reddit. That was off Quora. There, you got that off Quora.
UMD.edu.
That was like some AI thing, like somebody, like the computer came up with that.
No, it's not that one. I definitely looked at the UMD website. So I'm searching now. I can't find it.
Okay, we need to work on that, because that's pathetic. That's really sad. That makes me very sad. I don't want to be sad.
Yeah,
I'm not here to be sad.
Yeah. Well, that's what they were. That's what they listed in the.
I'm embarrassed.
Yeah, I can't find it again. But
that's fine. You don't need to find that list again. That list needs to go away.
Well, there you go. I thought that would be. So, I got one more thing. Let me show you guys this real quick. I'm gonna share this screen here. So. This is Torvik's player ratings. This is last year. 20, a total of 20.
Is that their postseason?
No,
their fourth season or preseason?
Full season.
Okay.
Of this last year.
Okay.
And the 19.6 are the 9 rotation players. Okay. And it's kind of like in the scene in Moneyball, when Brad Pitt is got all the old scouts around him, he's as Billy Bean, and he's got Jonah Hill there playing the analytics guy, and they're like, how do we replace Jose Canseco and Johnny Damon and whoever the third guy was? He had 1,100 OPS, and he's like, we can't replace that. We're going to replace it in the aggregate. And you add all 3 of the guys together, they have to average this thing. He said, we can get 3 guys who average the same as Damon, Giambi, and this other guy that we lost. So if you look here, these are the 5 guys they've added. They were 7.5 last year. And then if you want to give them an improvement, I get a 10% improvement on average, I think is pretty fair. If you give them a 20% improvement, it goes to that. And then these
10's not a bad place to start.
Yeah. So these are the other guys that have been listed in the tracker thread that I think Ben started, or was it Ben or Sam?
Ben, yep, Ben.
Ben started a tracker thread, and these are all the guys that were mentioned. And so, you can take these freshmen. I gave Andre Mills a 1. There were 116 freshmen who averaged 1.0 or better last year, and he's ranked whatever 80 or 90. Plus, he's a red shirt. I think 1 is a safe thing to say for him there. It's as soon as if you add Bryce Lindsay, that changes things big time.
That's
Without him
right now,
you need 4 guys, each averaging about 3 apiece to get to last year's rotation numbers. But if you add Bryce, now you need the last 4 or 3 guys. It's like 2.5 instead of 3, so it's a lot easier to get that right. So maybe they and then if you take the improvement as well, they're getting really close. So
yeah, they've added some nice pieces, but you're literally trying to replace a lineup that made the most threes in Maryland's single season history. And Lindsay shot 40% last year on pretty high volume.
Right.
So
Yeah, I mean it's interesting because obviously last year was pretty much just the crab five and a couple guys who could play fill-in minutes, whereas this year you could imagine a 8 or 9 or 10 guy rotation, but you could see all these still adding up to about that same number, Larry, which I think is what you're getting up to.
Exactly.
The issue here is you look at it right now is pretty much Payne and Miles Rice are the only two guys that I'm confident in being Big Ten level starters. Everybody, the other guys, I don't know. Washington did come on towards the end of last season, and I know that Andrew spoke highly of him. So maybe he improves a little bit and he gets into that discussion. Coit, he went to Kansas as a fairly, kind of notable portal addition and really didn't play great, to be honest with you. And Mills, we just don't know because he's a freshman. So to me, Buzz still has to add at least 2 clear-cut starters. I mean, just
Bryce, Lindsay, and
Rensher is visiting this weekend. I would think they'll get, and then there's a couple more names that popped up today that I'm working on. That I might have.
If you give each of these guys a 1, which is about what their rating level would be, actually it'd be a little higher. It's actually conservative. 116 freshmen got 1.0 higher. These guys are all rated in the top 100, so they could actually be a 1.2 to 1.5, whatever. But if you give them all a 1, it probably flushes out to that.
Is it more or less conservative than Derek Queen projecting for like 5.8 points?
Yeah, I did really enjoy that at the beginning of the season. He had Queen going for like 6 and 5.
Are there any of these other guys, Jeff, who you think might have a chance
to like outperform their
to come to Maryland? To commit to Maryland.
I'm looking. Okay, I see now. Yeah, I mean, Lindsay, they're right in there with you. You just got to hope like the SEC schools don't spend like crazy. Turkson, definitely a chance. And then the kid who I mentioned earlier in the show, who I haven't looked up yet, but he's the other freshman who's from Boston. I think they've got a good chance with him.
None of these other guys here, though? These were all
I haven't heard much on most of those guys. Like,
okay.
I don't think Sean Phillips would be. I've seen him, maybe as a backup center. He doesn't seem like Buzz's style, though. He's kind of lumbering, like massive guy. Malik Mack, I think that was just a bogus rumor. But Lindsay's really the guy to watch there. Obviously, if you could get Makai Mason, you'd love that. But I'm sure his price tag is pretty high, also.
Right. So the other thing to remember is getting these numbers is a top 10 team in the country, or at least top 15. You get close to that and you're talking a tournament team, right? So,
well, I'd be kind of curious, Larry. I mean, just if you were bored, because you get bored and do things like spreadsheets, but what his A&M team looked like last year, because that's going to be a team that goes kind of 9 or 10 deep, which might have that similar distribution. You know what I mean?
I looked at them and I looked at Michigan State as well. They were both very similar. Michigan State, I remember specifically, Jace Richardson was, I think, 3.9. So he was the only one that was hanging up here. And then it jumped down and they had 7 or 8 guys that were between 2.4 and 1.5.
Yeah.
And then all added up to 24.
Yeah. So but that's what you're probably looking at in a Buzz kind of team, as opposed to a crab 5 that's just a really good starting 5 and then not a lot of bench.
Yeah. So if these guys come in and you get a 10% improvement, you're up here, you're getting kind of close. You need probably 2 to 3 more real quality Big Ten players in there. You don't want to rely on these 3 freshmen. And you're talking about a pretty solid chance at a tournament. And like Andrew said, maybe around a 32, which is not what anybody wants. But when you consider coming into a program, as Jeff said, when there's absolutely nothing there, you offer me that right now, I'm saying, okay, I'll take that for next year. And then
I think everybody would take a tournament next year.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be pretty tough to turn that down, but it's just going to be such a year-to-year thing. And clearly he's got a couple freshmen potentially bringing with him. He's got those redshirt guys, but like it's going to be a bit of a couple years at least of picking these guys out of the portal and hope for the best. So, it's going to be interesting to watch. That's for sure.
Hey, Seftigal said spreadsheet is to victory, Larry. Okay.
Yeah. Manifest it.
Here you go.
Sure. Let's just get all those guys, and all of a sudden you've got a top 10 team. Let's do it.
There you go. I just did it. There you go. All right. Let's remove that. Okay, guys. Good show. Hey, thank you everybody for joining us. We've had a ton of people again, and thank you guys for the last few weeks. You guys have been showing up, man. Watching the episodes live, watching them in replay, watching for an extended period of time. Like, we can measure that, and the length of time you guys are watching is more. Sending us the super chats, which is so appreciated, so that we can pay for Jeff's new microphone, right? All of that stuff. But thank you so much. And clicking on like, we had shows where there were 100 likes and everything. So that's really cool. And if you haven't done that yet, please do it. Help us out. We keep building and growing, and it's more fun for everybody when there's lots of people here. So,
and we should be back more on Wednesdays now that everything's calmed down a little bit. So, get used to, getting comfy, pouring a nice drink, and checking us out Wednesday at 7:30. That's kind of going to be our deal. So okay, yes. Here we go. You must be under your wife's account. I think it's Mike Barth. He's under Jill Barth. Hey, I wonder. Well, maybe Jill made the right picks. Maybe it was. Could be. That's probably Jill. Maybe it was her. That's true. Good point. Good point. Jill or Mike, whoever it is. You won the bracket challenge. Yes, you did. Go on the message board. I responded to you in the thread, or find Jeff.
Or DM me on Twitter.
Yeah, or tweet at us Twitter, something. Yeah,
on the message board. All me. So you, Jill, that was you? Yeah, nice. I choose to believe that's Jill. Excellent. I love well done. That we not only have, that's our first ever in the history of our show female listener. And out of how many hundreds of thousands over the years have listened to us? Millions. Very first. Yeah. Very first female. We love it. All right, Jet. DM Jeff on Twitter or send us a message on the board. And yes. Oh, sorry. All me. That's right. Congratulations. No, I don't believe you, Mike. I don't believe you. I don't believe you at all. He said it's actually all Mike, not Jet. You're trying to steal your wife's flowers, man. That's ridiculous. You're really yourself. Right. Okay. All right. Hey guys, do us a favor. Click like. Have some subscribe. All those things. We're gonna over the next month. There's gonna be enough going on. Even though football and basketball are done with spring practice and with spring football portal and with all the crazy basketball stuff. So we're going to be doing shows for at least a little while here before we get to our summer lull. So stick with us, and we'll let you know when that's going to happen. This is IMS